Okay, so welcome everyone. We are here to study the text of A Course in Miracles. My name's Eloisa Ramos, and I'm here with Connie. Hi, Connie. And Sonia, who doesn't have her camera today, but she's here.
Hi.
Hi. We left off. At the beginning of chapter 2, the separation and the atonement. And it's section 1. We're going to start off with the origins of separation. So this is a really good chapter. So let's just start. Okay. To extend is a fundamental aspect of God, which he gave to his son. In the creation, God extended himself to his creations and imbued them with the same loving will to create. You have not only been fully created, but have also been created perfect. There is no emptiness in you. Because of your likeness to your Creator, you are creative. No child of God can lose this ability because it is inherent in what he is. But he can use it inappropriately by projecting. The inappropriate use of extension or projection occurs when you believe that some emptiness or lack exists in you and that you can fill it with your own ideas instead of truth. This process involves the following steps. Okay, so we'll stop here and go through that sentence by sentence. Anything before? Anything there?
I don't know, just reading that line, the number 4, there is no emptiness in you. I remember that was a really big part of depression, at least when I experienced it. So it's definitely very clear, at least to me, that was the conflict. And I was completely looking at it the opposite way.
Yes, because we don't, what's the word? It doesn't even occur to us to question that feeling or that experience. Because I remember that too, feeling like there was something missing.
Mhm.
And I did what it says right here at the sentence 7, that you can
Yeah.
fill it with your own ideas instead of
Yeah.
truth.
I tried that too. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Because I thought, oh, I'm just missing a boyfriend. So I went and got a boyfriend. So that's the idea of, we can fill it with our own ideas instead of the truth. And the truth is, of course, what's the truth, Connie?
That we are whole and complete.
That's right. Because that's right. Mm-hmm. Because we are as God created us. So we are whole and complete. So we don't even question that sense of emptiness. And that's why it shows up as the unhealed mind. Yeah. And so that's what needs healing, is all of these ideas that are not what we are, but we think that's what we are, and we just assume that's what we are, and then we try to fix them, or we try to correct them, or we try to deny them, or whatever we do with them, instead of looking for the truth. And so we have been created perfect with the same loving will to create. And that can be really hard to believe, because a lot of times we have judged ourselves and believed that we are not loving. We can say, well, I've done all these terrible things. How can I be loving? Well, we haven't forgiven ourselves. Obviously, we're still holding the grievance. And without the forgiveness piece of it, we're not going to be able to see the innocence. And so we're not going to believe that we are actually loving, created in the likeness of God, who is also loving. And because of our likeness, we are creative, and no child of God can lose this ability. But the inappropriate use of it is rather to extend love, which is what creating is extending love, and making the perfect, not making, but creating the perfect, because the Course distinguishes the two words. So I try to remember. So the making is the projecting. That's when we use that creative ability inappropriately, is when we make up ideas that are not true, that are not in alignment with the truth of what we are as we were created. And that's because we are believing that some emptiness or lack exists in us. And we don't question that. We just accept that to be true. Yeah. Okay. So anything there? Any more there? No. Okay. So let's look at the process here. So the process is for the inappropriate use of extension or projection. And so these are the steps in projection. First, go ahead and read it. I already read. I forgot.
Wait, me or?
Yeah, go ahead and read it, Sonia.
Okay. First, you believe that what God created can be changed by your own mind. Second, you believe that what is perfect can be rendered imperfect or lacking. Third, you believe that you can distort the creations of God, including yourself. Fourth, you believe that you can create yourself and that the direction of your own creation is up to you.
Yes. So there's actually 4 beliefs in there. And it is a process of believing these 4 things that leads us to project rather than extend, which is miscreation, the inappropriate use of our creative ability. And so the first one is believing that what God created can be changed by our own mind. Okay. And so why is that not possible to do?
Because we can't change how we were created, which is perfect and whole.
Yeah, but the idea of God itself is that God is changeless, God is timeless, God is eternal, and God is all powerful. And therefore, there can be nothing else that would have greater power, that could change what is all powerful. Otherwise, we're just negating the idea of what God is. And then there's no point because we're not talking about God anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So if we want to believe and accept that God is all powerful, is unchanging, timeless, eternal, okay, then we can't then go and believe. I mean, we do, but it's in contradiction. Okay, we can believe anything we want, even if it's in contradiction. But what will happen is that we'll have to split our mind in order to try to hold on to both beliefs because they cannot be reconciled. Okay, so this is what we do is we make a belief that negates. So if we believe that what God created can be changed by our own mind, what we're doing is we're negating or denying that God is non-changing, that God is eternal. Because now I'm believing that what God created, which would also have to be like God, eternal and non-changing, can be changed.
Mhm.
And so that belief would be a denial of truth. Okay. And so the same with the second one, you believe that what is perfect can be rendered imperfect or lacking. So we're turning these beliefs upside down because we're saying, okay, well, God created me perfectly, but now I judge myself as being imperfect and lacking because I don't do everything perfectly. How can I be perfect? I screw things up all the time. Okay. And I suffer the consequences. so it's like saying, well, I experienced that. How can I deny that? So um, therefore I must be imperfect. And I deny the truth that God created me perfect and that I cannot change myself. And so then third is you believe that you can distort the creations of God, including yourself, which is, it's similar to the one right above it, but the distortion is more subtle, because the distortion can be very gradual to the point where we don't even notice that we are believing that we have changed ourselves. So there could just be little doubts there, about what we are. But distortion really is saying that the truth is not absolutely true. That, there's a little wiggle room in there so we can play around with truth. And so a little white lie is not going to do anything. um, um, but it does. So, I mean, what the Course teaches is that the truth is the truth and nothing else is the truth. So, one little distortion and we have left our awareness of truth. And now we're in the wrong mind, believing that that the creations of God can be changed a tiny little bit. Okay, so that the truth can be bent just a little bit and still be truth. Okay, and number 4, you believe that you can create yourself and the direction of your own creation is up to you. Okay, so let me see. I think we were just talking about that this morning. Let me see. You believe that you can create yourself. So there's a lot of ways we can believe that we can create ourselves. Obviously, it's the idea of, asking a child, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? And it's like, okay, we're literally asking them, what are you going to make of yourself? So as if they were not already created and created perfect and whole. So right off from the beginning, when we think about oh, well, what are you going to do with your life? What career are you going to pursue? Are you going to have a family? Are you going to do this? So we're kind of believing that what we do with our life is creating what we are. It's kind of like you can think of it more like a sculpture. We're a blob of clay, and it's like, okay, here you are, a blob of clay. Now just sculpt yourself. See what you can make of yourself. What's going to be the form? So we're confusing creation with form. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
What's your self-image going to be? What are you going to look like? What's the world going to say about you? What are you going to be known for? What are you going to, I don't know. What's your legacy going to be? That kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So any questions with that?
No, I keep thinking of like what were you saying, like when we ask a child that, um, it's really about, it's like we almost have to, it's implied that we have to make our own worth. Like we're not already worth something. Like your worth is tied to what you do.
Yes, because I think the way that we look at small children, especially like babies, right? You look at them almost as potential. You
Yeah.
you're like, okay, you're not an accomplishment yet, but there's potential in you.
Poor kid already feels that judgment and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's all in the schools, it's all in the
Mhm.
in the grading, it's all in, yeah, it's in the
Every-
competition and everything.
Yeah. Top of the class. You got to be the top of the class.
Mhm.
Ooh.
Yeah, and you have to excel in sports. You have to excel in whatever you do because you have to stand out to
Mm.
distinguish yourself. And so it's all about specialness,
Mhm.
right? Because to be as we are created, perfect, okay, without emptiness, means that there is nothing we can add to ourselves, nothing that we can do to make ourselves unequal. Because if we're all equal, I mean, if we're all whole and complete, there's nothing else we have to do to ourselves to improve ourselves, to grow, to better ourselves, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and therefore there's no way to compare one from the other to make one more special and different, because we have to be able to see differences um, to be unique, separate, individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, Connie.
These related distortions represent a picture of what actually occurred in the separation, or the, quote, detour into fear, end of quote. None of this existed before the separation, nor does it actually exist now. Everything God created is like him. Extension as undertaken by God is similar to the inner radiance that the children of the Father inherit from him. Its real source is internal. This is as true of the Son as of the Father. In this sense, the creation includes both the creation of the Son by God and the Son's creations when his mind is healed. This requires God's endowment of the Son with free will, because all loving creation is freely given in one continuous line in which all aspects are of the same order.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so if we want to, the Course says that the only problem that we have is the belief in separation. Okay, and this is telling us that what actually occurred in the separation, or the detour into fear, is sort of the same process that these four beliefs take, which is a distortion, but it summarizes a picture of what occurred there. Okay. So none of this, of course, none of these ideas existed before the separation, and they don't actually exist now. Okay, because ideas that are not in alignment with the truth as God created it are not true. So all of these ideas form what we call the ego thought system. But because we believe them, we give them, quote unquote, reality to our own mind that believes them, even though in actuality, like it says here in number 2, none of this existed before the separation, nor does it actually exist now. They've never existed in reality, but if we give them belief, they're going to have reality for us, because that's what belief does. It makes them true to us, even though they're false. And so it's, you could kind of say that it's a self-delusion. It's a delusional system, okay, because it's very subjective. Nobody believes the same thing exactly. We all have a set of different, we may agree on some beliefs, but we all kind of have this unique way of perceiving the world because we have built up this unique system of beliefs. But because they're all self-made, they're all subjective, and so that's why everything God created is like Him, and that has not changed except in our own thinking, which we believe. And so extension is undertaken by God is similar to the inner radiance that the children of the Father inherit from Him. So the inner radiance, you can think of, if you think of the most loving person you have ever known, that you have ever met, you can kind of feel this inner radiance coming from them. And it's because that's that love, the love of truth, the love of God, the love that we are, is like light. It's an inner radiance. So you can think of it in almost like the Holy Spirit that brings light to darkness and dispels these false beliefs. And so let's see. And the real source of this, of course, is internal, because we were created with it. So it's within all of us. And it's true of the Son as the Father. So in this sense, the creation includes both the creation of the Son by God and the Son's creation when His mind is healed. Okay, so what it's saying, even though we think that we are creating ourselves here by making ourselves whatever we want, that's not really creation, because the thoughts in our mind are thoughts that are not true, and therefore the mind is holding on to blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is what we truly are, which is our true essence as God created us, as creations of God. When the mind lets go of all of these false thoughts and recognizes the truth, then the mind is healed. And that's when the mind can extend or create like our Creator, like God. So until we do the work of healing our mind, we're not creating. We think we're creating, but we're not creating. We're making things up. Okay, but we're basically imagining, and we're believing that that's creating.
Mhm.
Yeah. This requires God's endowment of the Son with free will, because all loving creation is freely given. Yes, so love, unconditional love, is also unconditional freedom. I think it's really hard to understand, to begin to even understand what love is when we are growing up in the world, and love has been defined in so many other ways. And you can think of that as believing, if we say, okay, yes, I am love, God created me as love, and then we go and define love in worldly terms, well, I'm doing the same thing as believing that I can change myself, because I'm changing what love is. So if I'm believing that love is special, okay, and therefore love is limited, then I have just changed the truth about what love is. Love is unlimited. And those concepts, those definitions are going to imprison the free will that God has given me, because by believing that I am a body, or that I am, what I judge myself to be, I am making myself imperfect. I am, and when I make myself imperfect, I am forgetting the truth of how I was created. And therefore, I'm going to be limiting myself, which is a loss of freedom. Any questions here?
No.
Okay. Okay, paragraph 3. The Garden of Eden, or the pre-separation condition, was a state of mind in which nothing was needed. When Adam listened to the, quote, lies of the serpent, unquote, all he heard was untruth. You do not have to continue to believe what is not true unless you choose to do so. All that can literally disappear in the twinkling of an eye, because it is merely a misperception. What is seen in dreams seems to be very real. Yet the Bible says that a deep sleep fell upon Adam, and nowhere is there reference to his waking up. The world has not yet experienced any comprehensive reawakening or rebirth. Such a rebirth is impossible as long as you continue to project or miscreate. It still remains with you, however, to extend as God extended his spirit to you. In reality, this is your only choice, because your free will was given to you for your joy in creating the perfect. Okay. Okay, shall we do that line by line, or do you have anything here to say here?
No, that works.
Okay, Garden of Eden, pre-separation condition was a state of mind in which nothing was needed. Okay, so the Garden of Eden is a story. Okay, but so stories are ways of communicating content, but they are not the content, they're the symbol. So what it's saying is that this story is a representation of the state of mind that we had before the separation, the pre-separation condition, in which nothing was needed. So the mind was complete, it was whole. It had no lack, it had no needs. It didn't see itself separate from its source. And then and then when Adam listened to, quote unquote, the lies of the serpent, all he heard was untruth. It's interesting, it says Adam, but in the story it was Eve who first, who heard but it doesn't matter if it was Adam or Eve. They're both the same. Okay. And yes, so the serpent represents, and it's interesting that it's a serpent because it's almost like the primitive, the
Reptilian.
reptilian. Yeah, so it's almost that primitive part of the mind that was talking to Adam and Eve and was telling them all these lies about how the tree of knowledge was, the way that God was trying to keep knowledge away from them, kind of a thing, which of course doesn't make any sense because God created them like them. So they would have knowledge.
Sorry, what did you just say? They felt that God was keeping knowledge from them?
Yes. So in the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, there was a tree, and it was called the tree of knowledge. And apparently God told them that they could have and eat of any of the fruit in the garden except for the tree of the fruit, the apple of this tree.
They could have anything but the fruit of the tree.
Exactly. And so what the serpent, the snake, was telling Eve is that he said, well, the reason God doesn't want you to eat from that tree is because it's a tree of knowledge. And if you eat of it, you're going to gain knowledge and become God, like God, or like you're going to know as much as God knows, which is weird to begin with anyway. Okay. But the idea is that this was forbidden. God forbade Adam and Eve of eating from here. So the implication is God is keeping something away from you that he doesn't want you to have, that he's keeping to himself. So that's the idea. Okay. I mean, that's an idea of separation right off the bat, right? God did not give you everything when he created you. He made you not equal. He somehow, made you a little bit less knowledgeable than God. Yes. And so Eve took the apple and ate and gave to Adam. And that's the sin. That's considered the original sin, the disobedience of what God had instructed them.
Well, it's also, I find interesting that there was an Adam and an Eve at that point, that there were two different distinctive sexes.
Yeah, well, somewhere in that story, Adam falls asleep and, oh,
Hmm.
Adam is lonely. And when he's sleeping, God takes a rib from Adam and creates Eve to be his companion.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, he takes a rib from where?
from Adam.
Takes his rib and makes a woman for
Yes,
him.
bone of his bone.
So he won't be lonely, but that doesn't make sense either.
Well,
Because if they already had all that, why would God feel the need to do that?
yes. Well,
Uh,
you can see there's a lot of discrepancies in the story,
okay.
but I never questioned it growing up. It was the
Uh,
Bible, for goodness sakes, and that's the way
yeah.
it was.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, but it basically, it represents this idea that the Garden of Eden was this garden where they had everything. God provided everything for them. They had no needs. They didn't have to do anything for themselves to try to meet any need. In fact, they weren't even aware that they were bodies. It was after they ate from the apple
Yeah.
that they hid, because all of a sudden they realized, oh my God, I'm naked. So they must have had the awareness of being a body.
Oh my God, I'm naked.
Because they were hiding, so there was some kind of shame there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the original sin had some kind of impact, and the result was that they got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Um, so anyway, okay, so okay, so you do not have to continue to believe what is not true, okay, unless you choose to do so, Connie.
Well, thank you for explaining all that to me, because I've always wondered, the whole Bible thing. A lot of it wasn't really clear for me
Yeah.
what they were trying to say. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's what it's saying. It says, look, we have a choice here on what we want to believe. Okay. And so we're not stuck just because I grew up with all these beliefs. Okay. I'm not stuck with those beliefs. I can go and question them, which is what I did when I was in college, and really thought, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, is that something I really want to believe?
Mhm.
you know? Um, so yeah. So number 4, all that can literally disappear in the twinkling of an eye because it is merely a misperception. And it's saying, look, when we believe, when we are dreaming, what is seen in our dream seems to be very real. When we're dreaming, we don't have a way to really question that until we wake up and see that it was a dream, right? I suppose if we have this really great dream, we might want to kind of, what's the word? Really wish it was real. Okay, but we know it's a dream. Okay, so the Bible says sleep fell upon Adam, and nowhere this is waking up. And so that's what the Course is kind of saying, is that the world has really not experienced a comprehensive reawakening or rebirth, meaning the world has literally not come to the place where they recognize, oh my gosh, look at everything I've been believing and it's not true. It hasn't gotten to the place where there's enough there's enough people that are really willing to question all these just assumed beliefs that they grew up with. And most of them we already brought in with us anyway. And because we haven't really looked at them and really, really questioned them, we just keep believing them. So we're still kind of in this dream state of believing what is not true. And it's calling that a rebirth, because the rebirth would mean that we it's a rebirth, but not as but it would be a rebirth as spirit, as recognizing that we are spirit and not an ego body. But it also says that kind of rebirth is impossible. That kind of reawakening is impossible. It's interesting that it says reawakening. See, it's not awakening, it's reawakening. So it's almost like, yeah, you were awake and then you fell asleep and now you have to wake up again, you know, because we were created awake. God created us awake. So, and so that rebirth is impossible as long as you continue to project or miscreate. And so, of course, it's going to be impossible if we just keep extending the error, we keep miscreating, we keep choosing fear instead of love, we keep choosing the grievance instead of forgiveness, because we're not practicing love. How are we going to recognize that to be our true self? But it still remains within us, okay, to extend love as God extended his spirit to us, the spirit of love. And in reality, this is your only choice, okay? Because to not choose that means to just remain asleep and to just perpetuate the false beliefs, which is not really a choice, okay? Because it's not, you're not changing anything. We're already asleep. So to just continue to not choose to awake is just to continue to be asleep, which is not a choice. We're already asleep. So, so our only choice is to choose to wake up to reality, because our free will was given to us for our joy in creating the perfect. So that's the purpose of our free will, is to create the perfect. But we can't do that, you know, with an unhealed mind. The unhealed mind just miscreates. It doesn't create, it miscreates. So that's the importance of the healing of the mind. And of course, the process is forgiveness. And the process of forgiveness recognizes that what my brother did to me did not happen. So it recognizes that the mind is misinterpreting and therefore is miscreating, and therefore it corrects the miscreation. Okay.
So I find that one line just really depressing, line 7. You know, it's just so surprising. The world has not yet experienced any comprehensive reawakening or rebirth, and yet it seems as though many are going the other way. So into more unconsciousness, or anyway.
Yeah, it seems well, but you know, I almost feel like we're getting very, very, very close, because I feel like if people are going the other way, it's because they are there's fear, you see. And so what it means is that the closer we get to the truth, the intensity of the defenses have to show up. Does that make sense? Because the thought system of the ego is sensing threat. So you don't defend, you know, you don't defend without sensing threat. And if you're sensing threat, the ego can sense. It does not know love, but it can sense that love or the Holy Spirit thought system is a threat to it as its undoing. And so it does. It becomes pretty vicious, but it's part of that process. Because I think it explains later somewhere that the something about the ego, when the ego becomes really vicious, is because it's very close to the end, you know, because it doesn't give up without a battle. It was made as, you know, as to defend and survive and protect itself. So but you know, I've listened to some of Eckhart Tolle's talks, and he's beginning to see that the reawakening is becoming more and more comprehensive. I've heard him say that. So I think just by the numbers maybe of, you know, how many people are really open to a lot of his teachings, he may be seeing that going up. And certainly the Course in Miracles, there's a lot more interest, and there's a lot more students all over the world that are beginning to study it. So,
And just thinking about that is like, well, the fear is a great motivator for people to find a different way, find a better way.
yes, because I think that the fear can only get to a certain intensity. And the Course talks about that too, about how the ego, you know, the ego wants you to be afraid, but not too much. Because you can't handle too much, then you have to look for another way. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's almost like, you know, it's almost like the ego is, I mean, I almost don't want to say this, but the ego can't win. You know, the ego is a detour into fear, okay? And it's got to strike this little balance, because it's got to keep you in fear, but oh my gosh, too much. And then you begin to question it, you know, like, oh, this is unbearable. You know, so it's almost like there's just this little gap where you are just kind of going along with just enough fear to, you know, keep you mindless, but not too much. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't remember if I read or who read. Did I read?
I think it's Sonia's turn.
Okay. Number 4.
Okay. 4. All fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp the power of God. Of course, you neither can, wait, let me read that again. Of course, you neither can nor have been able to do this. Here is the real basis for your escape from fear. The escape is brought about by your acceptance of the atonement, which enables you to realize that your errors never really occurred. Only after the deep sleep fell upon Adam could he experience nightmares. If a light is suddenly turned on while someone is dreaming a fearful dream, he may initially interpret the light itself as part of his dream and be afraid of it. However, when he awakens, the light is correctly perceived as the release from the dream, which is then no longer accorded reality. This release does not depend on illusions. The knowledge that illuminates not only sets you free, but also shows you clearly that you are free.
Okay, so all fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp the power of God. Okay, and so that kind of goes back to the story of Adam and Eve, okay, which is the idea that they were trespassing by eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, which would be the idea of usurping the power of God that God was keeping for himself. Okay, and so that is a misperception because God created us in his likeness and therefore gave us everything to be whole and complete. So we cannot be lacking anything. And so that shows up really in a lot of forms, but the most obvious one is the belief in sin. Okay, so the belief in sin and the belief that we can offend God is the belief that what we do or in disobeying, quote unquote, God's wishes or whatever, God's commandments, that in doing that, we are offending God, we are upsetting God, we are obviously sidestepping his authority, clearly, right? Which means that we have usurped the power of God. It's no different than a teenager who, has a curfew and disobeys and stays out half of the night. Okay. Um, and so the parental authority is out the window. Okay. The child cannot be controlled by parental authority. Um, so, um, so this idea that the power of God can be usurped is why we feel guilty, is why we think that we can do things that offend God and therefore justify God's wrath or punishment. Okay. And of course, you neither can nor have you been able to do this because we're not separate from God. So right off the bat, in order to usurp the power of God, to offend God, we have to be separate from God. We can't be one with God. If we're one with God, then we would be sharing in God's power. So there would be no way to take away or, sidestep or do any of that. And so this is the real basis for your escape from fear. Okay. And that escape is brought about by your acceptance of the atonement. And remember what the atonement is. What does it say, Connie?
Well, that we never did separate.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And at one meant. So we never did separate. And therefore, it's not possible that we can usurp the power of God. It's not possible that we can offend God. And so accepting that atonement enables us to realize that our errors never really occurred because they're occurring in a dream where we believe we are separate from God and that God's power can be usurped. But if you take away all of that, if you deny the premise that we're separate from God, then it's impossible for us to sin against God. So only after deep sleep fell upon Adam could he experience nightmares. And so that's what it's saying, is that, to believe that we can usurp the power of God and then fear God and feel guilty and then fear that God's going to take revenge on us, or that we're going to go to hell and pay for our sins. That's pretty scary. That's really, really scary. I mean, just the idea of getting in trouble can be terrifying, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, all I have to say to my grandkids is, okay, you know what mom and dad are going to do, okay? And they're like, okay. Yeah, so let's see.
So I guess magnify that by 1,000-fold, how we feel towards God.
Yes, I
Really,
mean,
yeah.
yes, I mean, we're afraid of God. So, and so let's see. And that's a nightmare. That's the nightmare. It's the detour into fear. Yeah. So if a light is suddenly turned on while someone is dreaming a fearful dream, he may initially interpret the light itself as part of his dream and be afraid of it. Because that's happened to me. Sometimes I've incorporated noises outside into my own dream or things like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sorry, this sentence reminds me of an experience I had. I think I told my mom, but years ago, when I went to it was like communication for animals class, where they would, there was an instructor, it was like a 1-day workshop where she taught people how to, kind of get grounded and intuitively communicate with animals. And she had us do an exercise where we would stare into the eyes of another classmate. We would sit across from each other, and no words, nothing. You would just stare at their eyes for 5 minutes, just silence. Wow. And I was doing that with this woman that was next to me, and we were looking at each other, and suddenly, like, my whole vision started going like light, like there was just like light just like covering my entire vision, like as I stared at her. And so for a second I got really scared, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna pass out, like I think I'm gonna black out. But I mean, I didn't realize like it was the opposite of blacking out, because when you black out you just see black. But I thought, oh my God, like I'm gonna black out right here in my chair, just staring at this woman, But it was just like light was just filling my entire vision, and I didn't have any thoughts, so I just kept staring at her, and I was just hoping, like I wouldn't, pass out for the 5 minutes that I was there. But after the exercise ended, it went back to normal. But that reminded me of how it could be interpreted as fearful.
Yeah. Wow, did you talk about that after? Did other people have a similar experience, or did you share about it?
No, I never shared that experience with anyone except my mom, I think. Yeah. And maybe someone else, I don't remember. But yeah, because I didn't understand it when it happened. That's why I was fearful, but looking back, I realized that was not a fearful experience.
Well, yeah. Wow. 5 minutes is a long time.
Yeah, it's just silence, just looking into each other's eyes. But it was a really good exercise.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, Sonia, because it reminds me of what it says up here, that the light is within. So it looks like you tuned into that inner light. Let's see, where would it say that? Maybe it was paragraph. See if I can see it. Well, anyway, it was up there. It said that let's see. It has to do with yeah.
I think in
The
5,
inner,
if a light,
yeah,
go ahead.
it's the inner radiance in paragraph 2.
Oh,
So
oh,
extension, yeah, so it says in sentence 4, paragraph 2, extension is undertaken by God is similar to the inner radiance that the children of the Father inherit from him. Its real source is internal. And so I think you were connecting to that inner radiance that's it, that's within all of us.
Yeah, because there was no thoughts going on. It was a wordless, you're looking at a person, but not really at the appearance. I think that's what it was.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yes, so see how paragraph 4 says number 9, the knowledge that illuminates not only sets you free, but also shows you clearly that you are free. And so you're free of the form, you see, in the knowledge that illuminates. There is no form. You were able to see past the body. You were able to see past the form. Yeah, so number 7, however, when he awakens, the light is correctly perceived as the release from the dream of form, of believing we are the body, which is then no longer accorded reality. And that release does not depend on illusions. So your experience did not depend on the ego thought system showing you something. It was a freedom from thinking, from the ego thought system that brought that up. Yeah. And the knowledge that illuminates not only sets you free, but also shows you that you are free, that we are freedom. Okay. Okay, you want to do 5, Connie?
Okay. Whatever lies you may believe are of no concern to the miracle, which can heal any of them with, let me see. Whatever lies you may believe are of no concern to the miracle, which can heal any of them with equal ease. It makes no distinctions among misperceptions. Its sole concern is to distinguish between truth on the one hand and error on the other. Some miracles may seem to be of greater magnitude than others, but remember the first principle in this course: there is no order of difficulty in miracles. In reality, you are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of lack of love. These can be from yourself and others, from yourself to others, or from others to you. Peace is an attribute in you. You cannot find it outside. Illness is some form of external searching. Health is inner peace. It enables you to remain unshaken by lack of love from without, and capable, through your acceptance of miracles, of correcting the conditions proceeding from lack of love in others.
Yeah. Okay, so it's saying a lot here. Okay, the first line is whatever lies you may believe are of no concern to the miracle, okay, which can heal any of them with equal ease. So irregardless of what beliefs we are holding, like up here, these 4 beliefs that are the process of miscreating here, irregardless of what beliefs we choose to believe, they're false. And that's why it's saying they're lies. So whatever lies, false beliefs you may believe, okay, it's of no concern to the miracle because it can heal any of them with equal ease. Because the miracle makes no distinction among misperceptions. Its sole concern is to distinguish between truth on the one hand and error on the other. So the miracle allows us to see clearly which are the thoughts of God and which are the thoughts of the ego that are false. And when the mind sees that it has believing thoughts that are false, it automatically lets them go. It's only because it has confused itself that it believes thoughts that are false, and then forgets that it is believing them to be false. So most of our beliefs are unconscious, and that's why we keep believing the same thoughts that are false, because we don't see them as beliefs. We just think that that's the way life is. Let's see. And not only that, but we identify with our beliefs. We will believe that our beliefs are right and other people's beliefs are wrong. And we will defend those and protect them as if they were ourselves. But they can't be ourselves because we are the ones that are making the decisions to believe whatever we want to believe. So we can't be our beliefs if they belong to us, right? The believer. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so the miracle simply is a change in perception so that we no longer believe what is false. We let go of that, of the ego thoughts. It's not that, some miracles may seem to be of greater magnitude than others, but that's not really true, because there's no order of difficulty in miracles. Because remember that magnitude and size is about perceiving differences and separation. So miracles do not originate from perception. They originate from knowledge, from love, from God. And that's why the magnitude is not an issue, because that's only a perception. That's a misperception. And that's what the miracle is healing. It's all healing all our misperceptions. And therefore, number 6, in reality, you are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of lack of love. So this is an idea, and I had that realization one time, that the self that was suffering, how sometimes people can say really mean things, or they can reject you or whatever, okay? And that can be very hurtful. And I had that realization that self that was suffering, that was feeling hurt, was not me. That was not my true self. because in reality, the true self cannot be hurt by the misperceptions of lack of love, because they're not true, they're misperceptions. And this can be from yourself and others. So we can be really mean to ourselves too. We can judge ourselves very, very harshly. Yeah, or, from yourself to others, or from others to you. So peace is an attribute in you. So in other words, we don't need other people to be a certain way in order for us to have peace. It's an inner attribute, because it's part of how we were created. And that's why it says, the next sentence, you cannot find it outside. And a lot of us do try to find peace outside. I mean, a lot of what people do, is okay. If I say, oh my God, I have terribly noisy neighbors, I'm going to move to a quieter neighborhood. I'm looking for some kind of peace outside. Or, if my kids are really noisy and I go out there and say, you guys be quiet, or, or I send them to the room or something so I can have quiet, then I'm looking for it outside. Number 10, illness is some form of external searching. Okay. So, so illness is seeking and not finding, because if we're going to look for peace outside and it's not outside, we're not going to find it. And so we're going to feel really frustrated. We're going to feel really upset. We're not going to be happy. And we're denying the truth, and sickness is a denial of the truth that, peace is within. And that's why it says health is inner peace. Because remember now that even modern medicine now is recognizing the connection between stress and illness. And so if we have inner peace, and if nothing in the world disturbs that inner peace, then we are assured health right here in this line. Health is inner peace. And it enables you to remain unshaken by lack of love from without, and capable through your acceptance of miracles of correcting the conditions proceeding from lack of love in others. So maybe we grew up with an abusive father or mother, okay? But through the miracle, through the acceptance of the miracle, the effects of growing up in those conditions can be healed. And so we don't need to live with the trauma of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anything there, Connie? Any questions, Sonia?
No.
No, not for me. Yeah.
Okay, so that's section, okay, that's the end of the first section.
One.
Yeah. And excuse me. So this might be a good place to stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Okay. So thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
we'll see
you.
you next time.